He did say this the other day. He said, my guess is that at some point, y'all may want him to do a rather in-depth press conference. He's speaking about Mitt Romney, explaining Bain Capital. Is this, as a Republican, as someone who is pro, free market and capitalism, is this a road you really want to go down?
Well, I think it's a road that the American people are going to go down eventually. I think when it's interesting if you look at the narrative that the campaigns are trying to play out, and I'm specifically talking about Romney since you brought it up, but he talks about that he's an entrepreneur and that he has only gone to serve his country when he needed to. But the reality is, he ran against Kennedy and didn't win. In fact, he says he knew he wasn't going to win, but he also wouldn't sign the contract with America. So it doesn't really add up. And then he talks about he served for a governor and then went back to the private sector, but he really began to run for president. So when you have someone that says their main difference is that they're an entrepreneur, you begin to say, what does that mean from their perspective? When I think of an entrepreneur, I think of someone that starts a small business that has to deal with the rules and regulations, that has to go through that whole entire process. So I think the voters have a right, just as Dan said at the Des Moines debate, that people have the right to ask questions and render judgment. That applies to all the candidates.
I understand what you're saying, but my question really was not that. My question was, is it wise for a Republican, for a conservative, to go after his work at Bain Capital? Which is a firm that dealt with a lot of different companies. The Wall Street Journal did an analysis this morning, said about 22% of the companies that they dealt with when he was in charge failed, so that leaves 78% that did very well. Is this a road that deteriorates the Republican conservative, overall message in the end if your father doesn't end up being the nominee?
I think the process that we're going through, the whole primary process, the whole point is to figure out who is the best candidate to beat President Barack Obama. I think that means you have to go through all of their activities. And let me give an example. Donna Brazile said after the